We have three of the most powerful smartphones that's out there currently in the market. We have the iPhone 17 Pro Max S25 Ultra. We got the iPhone 15 Pro Max, as that is going to be another competitor. It's only about 2 years older than the iPhone 17 Pro Max. Figured it'd be a great topic to talk about if it's even worth upgrading to, say, the iPhone 17 Pro Max compared to all three of these models. iPhone 17 Pro Max. It's quite wondrous, it's quite lustrous, it's quite the beauty. But the design has changed quite a bit. You can see that the corners are much more rounded. On the bottom, it's also much more rounded and easier to grab by hand. The display is a 6.9-inch display and still somewhat comfortable to hold, especially if you have larger hands, just like I do. It won't honestly be all that bad. This is what really differs from the other iPhone predecessors. Plateaued design of that like triangular camera lens look. Now you have the 3 camera lenses here, and you have 2 other ones here on the left side of the phone. You also have flash that's moved far over, and the Apple logo has dropped down dramatically compared to the iPhone 16 Pro Max or the 15 Pro Max and all the other predecessors. What's also changed about the iPhone 17 Pro Max is that the body is aluminum instead of the aircraft titanium frame. It's definitely a bit more hollow when you grab it. It's going to be a little bit more easier to scratch, as it isn't going to really honestly feel as premium compared to a titanium build. Now, when I first opened it up, I wasn't really that impressed. Reason being is because it just felt like a cheaper phone. It did not feel like the money that I paid for it. Also, with the iPhone 17 Pro Max, it does come in 4 different sizes. 256 gigabytes, 512 gigabytes, 1 terabyte, and all the way to 2 terabytes. Now the minimum is 256 gigabytes, which is plenty for most people. The colors have definitely stuck out quite a bit when it comes to the iPhone 17 Pro Max, as it has this wonderful aluminum body design. Now the colors that they chose to go with are cosmic orange, deep blue, and they also have silver. So not really crazy looking colors, but orange is the most bold. It was the most questionable from many people when they first saw it. It was a very speculative color, but it's a color that people ended up falling for. But personally for me, I like to be a bit subtle, because if you do go with something that's cosmic orange, you're asking for attention and also asking to get robbed. With the S25 Ultra, it does also feature a 6.9-inch display. Now, it's been heavily inspired by Apple, as many would say, and it just so happened to have a titanium built frame as soon as Apple released their version of titanium. It also has the very famous 5 lenses right here in the back for a much more cleaner look, and on the front side, it's also a 6.9-inch display. It's a bit more cornered to glass and was one of the first ones to really have this anti-reflective coating, which we will get in a little bit. Now the colors are quite a bit different when it comes to the Samsung S25 Ultra. Black, gray, titanium blue, they even had jade green and a rose pink color for their designs. Really light to hold and still comfortable to hold in hand compared to its predecessors such as the S24 Ultra and 23 Ultra and so on before, because it was a much more boxier design. So some people do appreciate it. Best thing about this phone is certainly nice to hold. Samsung S25 Ultra has a vapor chamber inside of it, similar to what the iPhone 17 Pro Max has finally introduced. It's nice that Apple has finally caught up to that side, but what really makes me question about them switching to the aluminum body is if Samsung can manage to keep a cool body with a titanium frame, how come Apple can't do it with their titanium frame? But anyway, let's go to the next side, which is going to be the iPhone 15 Pro Max, which is a nice titanium build. It does feel like a high quality phone. Very solid to hold in your hand, and it feels actually like a bit more like a brick. Ironically, this phone is actually a bit lighter compared to the iPhone 17 Pro Max, but for some reason it still somewhat feels heavier, maybe because of the titanium feel. It does feature a 6.7-inch display, and it does have the standard, really traditional iPhone design. They really switched it over from the 17 Pro Max with the unibody look. This one is more of that traditional iPhone type of look. Some people might appreciate the back of the phone a bit more, as it still looks stunning to this day. Now, when you do look at it compared to the 17 Pro Max, it's going to be obvious that it is a predecessor phone compared to the current iPhone. But I can tell you, I had this phone for a couple of years, and this was my daily use phone. In fact, I didn't use any type of screen protector on the iPhone 15 Pro Max. Lasted really well, and I didn't have any really serious scratches. I have one little scratch that's across the screen, which we will get into details in a little bit, but nothing too serious to the point where it obstructed the view from using the phone. So for build quality, the iPhone 15 Pro Max has certainly lasted through the times and has certainly acted like a brick, because it fell out of my hands quite a few times and didn't have any serious issues. All these phones, they are all IP68, meaning that they're water resistant and dust resistant. They're less likely to really get any water or dust damage. Maybe you're in the swimming pool, it fell in. You're just reading the news on the toilet and it just fell in. Let's hope that doesn't happen. But you don't have to worry about your phone, just in case if it does submerge in some water or if it sits in some sort of construction site. What really is also different about the iPhone 17 Pro Max's body, it has Ceramic Shield 2 from the front to the back. Ceramic Shield 2 also does promise to protect from be pretty much scratch resistant and against any real serious scratches. Again, that's something we'll see due time, because the edges more than likely will be the weak spot when it comes to this phone, as it is for, say, soda cans or beer cans, because that's exactly what it feels like when you're holding this. Now, when it comes to the S25 Ultra, it does have that premium design where it does have a very strong backing. This was my wife's phone since the beginning of the year. Again, she doesn't use a screen protector, very durable, and has been reliable. No scratching whatsoever in the front, so it's withheld its end of the bargain. The back has that nice kind of glassy feel, kind of almost looks just like how a premium phone should look like in the back. So it gives it a nice, subtle, improved design compared to its predecessors. Now, when it came to this, again, titanium body, it certainly makes a difference. And I feel like if I did drop this anywhere, I wouldn't really have to worry, because I feel pretty confident that the edges protect this phone, because it just feels like a brick in hand. Weight is really an important factor to you. Heaviest device I can start with is the iPhone 17 Pro Max. It weighs in at a stunning 233 grams and is the heavyweight champion. Now, when we go to the welterweight champion, it's actually going to be the iPhone 15 Pro Max, weighing in at 221 grams. And the one and the most lightest phone of them all, the lightweight champion, it's the S25 Ultra at only 217 grams. You can certainly feel quite the difference when you do hold this phone in hand, because it does feel nice and light to use. It doesn't feel like you're holding something where you can really get some fatigue, especially if you love to do selfies, or if you like to constantly look at games or hold games, like using the backbone or something. You can certainly use the S25 Ultra for long periods of time. Now, when it comes to the resolution, which one is really the best one? Because I gotta tell you, it's going to be a bit speculative and all opinion based. When it comes to the i15 Pro Max, you have a wonderful 6.7-inch OLED display with the Retina XDR 460 Pi, so it does have a very high resolution, neutral colors to where it's not oversaturated, which is nice. It does look very sharp when you're looking at text. When you're just looking at a website, you can clearly see exactly what you want to look for. The same thing when it comes to Apple's 17 Pro Max. That 17 Pro Max also features practically the same thing, but it features a 6.9-inch display. OLED Retina XDR. The bezels are actually much more thinner and almost looks like it doesn't exist on the iPhone 17 Pro Max. It does have the nice neutral colors, so display wise it doesn't really differ that much. For the S25 Ultra, it features a stunning 500 ppi. It's actually high resolution, which is at 3K. It's a little bit over 3K, around 3.1. The resolution is at 1440 by 3120 when it comes to the Galaxy S25 Ultra. So it certainly has high clarity. It does have some beautiful colors. Some people may feel it's a bit oversaturated, but then it is opinion based. But it depends on what the average consumer thinks, because it seems that it really does pop out visually. And I can tell you, if you're going from a iPhone over to a S25 Ultra, you can see the difference. But you will really notice the difference when you go from the Ultra down to an iPhone, because you will feel that the display is a bit inferior compared to a S25 Ultra. Now, what really differs between all three of these devices is actually going to be the nits on them. In fact, the nits on the iPhone 15 Pro Max is still relatively high. In fact, I never had issues within the 2 years of usage to where this goes up to 2,000 nits. Now, when it comes to the S25 Ultra, this is the next up in line because it goes up to 2,600 to 2,700 nits of brightness. So you definitely don't have to worry about seeing in the middle of the sun. Now, the highest of them all is going to be the iPhone 17 Pro Max, where it has up to 3,000 nits of brightness. What also stands out and what is mostly different between all three of them is the anti-reflective glass. In fact, iPhone 15 Pro Max, it just doesn't exist, but it certainly does exist in the 25 Ultra, as that was the introductory to anti-reflective coating, and same with the 17 Pro Max. Now, the colors are very vibrant between all three of the devices, and again, it depends on your professional usage. If you're using it professionally, if you prefer more neutral colors, then again, iPhone would be the way to go. If you prefer a bit more warmer and you don't mind the warmer colors, which you can also be adjusted on the S25 Ultra if you choose to, you prefer a much more higher resolution, then the Samsung S25 Ultra would be the way to go. With the iPhone 15 Pro Max, expect a resolution about 2696 by 1290. And when it comes over to the iPhone 17 Pro Max, it's a bit higher, but the text will certainly look smaller on the larger display, which is going to be at 2868 by 1320. I know it's a little bit of an odd resolution, but it still certainly does look nice. Now let's get to the battery. 15 Pro Maxes carry a wonderful battery. It's lasted really well actually throughout the years, as a large 4,044 milliamp battery. A little bit over 4,000 milliamps of a battery, but certainly one of the best in class. When it comes to the Samsung S25 Ultra, it features a nice, wonderful 5,000 milliamp battery, and the same when it comes to the iPhone 17 Pro Max, as they both carry a 5,000 milliamp battery. One of the reasons why Apple decided to go with the unibody design for the much larger battery space. When it comes to charging speeds, most importantly with the 15 Pro Max, it had only a maximum speed of up to 29 watts. When it comes to the iPhone 17 Pro Max, it can go to a maximum of up to 40 watts. And when it comes to Samsung's device, it's still the king of fast charging, where it reaches at an incredible 45 watts. Thanks to Cutout on the iPhone 17 Pro Max, it can charge up to an efficient 25 watts with a charging pad. With the original Qi, it originally charged only at 15 watts. It was super slow and not as efficient. Now, when it comes to Samsung's touchless charging, it does charge relatively quickly at 30 watts. Now, all three of them, thankfully, have USB-C and is going to be put into good use. Very easy to hook up to any PC or Mac device in order if you needed to transfer data. iPhone 15 Pro Max does certainly support up to USB 3 speeds. And the same when it comes to its upcoming successor, which it also supports up to USB 3 speeds. When it comes to Samsung's S25 Ultra, I think we pretty much know the answer there, as it is a bit more open-based when it comes to this. Now, which battery honestly lasts the longest between them all? How well will the vapor chamber serve them in daily usage? Right now, we're going to shut off all the cellular signal and the Bluetooth on all the devices. We set the phones to about 20% brightness, so they have equal brightness all across the board. So at first, we're going to run a video on YouTube for about 2 hours. Then we're going to go into and get Genshin Impact, which is both in the App Store and the Google Play Store, which we downloaded for an equal amount of time. So far for the usage, we wanted to make sure to max out the SoCs on all the devices for fair usage. Next, we're going to check out the temperatures as the game ran for 15 minutes. So far, we got about 42 on the iPhone 17 Pro Max, 37.5 on the S25 Ultra, and 46.1 on the 15. So right now, I've removed the cases because I wanted to see if it could ventilate a bit easier without the leather cases and the plastic cases, because of course it can affect vapor chamber capabilities. Now, of course, on the iPhone 15 Pro Max, it doesn't have the vapor chamber. The game's been on for like about almost an hour now. So we're going to check the iPhone 15 Pro Max first. And we got the number of 41.4. So it's definitely cooler without the case, nearly 3 degrees. Now the Samsung S25 Ultra is still about the same. It's reaching about 37.9 degrees, so it is getting a bit more hot, but not by much. And then for the iPhone 17 Pro Max, let's see. Without the case, it is a big dramatic difference. But it still seems that the S25 Ultra is still the more cool device. Even though the body is titanium so far, it seems that myth has been debunked. Apple has decided to go with the cheaper route of putting aluminum to save cost. But honestly, there is no real difference in heat dissipation between the titanium and aluminum body, as claimed from many people. We've been playing Genshin Impact for like nearly 2 hours now. And just to give you a temperature idea of what they look like without the case, currently we will check the hottest zone, which is, we have about 45 for the iPhone 15 Pro Max, 41.4 and 41.5 when it comes to the 17 Pro Max. Now let's check out the battery usage. 47%. And now we're going to check the S25U at a stunning 53%. And with the iPhone 15 Pro Max, already down to 18%. So this has certainly taken the most impact. But just to remind everybody out there, this phone is about 2 years old. So it does have a bit of a handicap. So we're going to exit out and leave the camera app on and see how the drainage works then. I'm pretty sure all these phones will be relieved, especially the 15 Pro Max. And man, the 15 Pro Max feels hot to touch. So we're going to go into the camera app here. So we are going to finish up this camera test. It's been running for a decent, about 30 to 35 minutes. We just ended up taking out the dog for a walk, and let's see where the battery levels are. Get a decent idea of how the temperatures are when the phone is in camera mode. So this is the 17 Pro Max right here. We get about 37.5. Now for the Samsung S25 Ultra, we got 41.9. And now for the iPhone 15 Pro Max, we got about 41.8. So for the 17 Pro Max, we got 38%. Let's see, 39% for the Galaxy S25 Ultra. And we're down to 4% already with the iPhone 15 Pro Max. Now, let's go into browsing or put the phone in idle for about 20 to 30 minutes to see how the power saving goes. The phones have been idling for about 30 minutes now. So what we're going to do is kind of go back and just act like we're just browsing on the internet. Should definitely have cooled off quite a bit. We got about 28.8 on the 17 Pro, 29.4 on the S25 Ultra, and about 30.4 on the iPhone 15 Pro Max. Let's start with the 15 Pro Max. Right now, we still have that beautiful 4%. It's holding nice and solid. For the S25 Ultra, we got about 37%. So that's not too bad, looking too bad itself. And for the iPhone 17 Pro Max, we got at 35%. Now we'll go through browsing and social media. It's the first one that is gone out of the battery test as it depleted completely at 8:52 p.m. So we got these two phones left. Let's see which phone will last the longest. It's been roughly about an hour for both social media to be on.
So now we're just going to turn on Genshin Impact to try to finish up this test. So far we got 31% left on the S25 Ultra, and we got 31%. So it seems like they ended up catching up to each other after this test. So let's put on some Genshin Impact and see what happens. Now the iPhone 17 Pro Max is down to about 5%. Even with the vapor chamber, I'm pulling about 44.8 with heavy usage of Genshin Impact. And for the Samsung S25 Ultra, let's see what we get out of this. We're getting a much cooler 39.9 degrees and a hefty 12% left. So we got the iPhone 17 Pro Max has finally shut down at around 10:42 p.m. Right now with the S25 Ultra, we have about 7% life, and see how much longer this lasts. And it looks like at 10:52, the Samsung S25 Ultra is finally the last one out. So it seems like the S25 Ultra is our winner.
Here are the stats for it, and you may or may not be so surprised, but this may be a determinant factor if you do choose to pick your phone. Now let's get into some of the internal specifications, which is the most important part when it comes to the power of the phone. Now when it comes to the iPhone 15 Pro Max, it is powered by the A17 Pro. It also has 4 performance cores, and it does have 2 E-cores. When it goes to the Samsung S25 Ultra, the US version, it does have the Snapdragon Elite SoC. On top of it, it does have up to 4 performance cores and also has 2 efficiency cores. And when it comes to the iPhone 17 Pro Max, it does have the brand new A19 Pro, which features also 4 performance cores and 2 E-cores. When it comes to speeds, believe it or not, the slowest device is going to take a guess, and it's going to be the Apple iPhone 15 Pro Max. That's certainly the slowest device of them all, but it's really not that slow. In fact, it still can handle a lot of the modern tasks, especially multitasking, somewhat gaming, but it does get extremely hot, which we'll talk about when it comes to the thermal side. It does have also 8 gigabytes of RAM compared to the 2 other devices, which they feature both of them. The S25 Ultra and the 17 Pro Max feature up to 12 gigabytes of RAM. Now the second quickest device is going to actually be the Samsung S25 Ultra, as it certainly outshines the 15 Pro Max when it comes to speeds, and it's actually, which I will get into the bit, which may surprise you, which is going to be the AI task. But when it comes to Apple's 17 Pro Max, this ends up being the quickest device of them all. It beats in both CPU and GPU usage with the SoC, and not by quite a ton as you see the scoreboard. When it comes to AI, it can go up to 30 trillion. Now when it goes to the S25 Ultra, 60 to 70 trillion. When it comes to Apple's iPhone 17 Pro Max, it reaches about 35 to 40 trillion. If you're looking for local LLMs, Samsung may be the device that you're looking for compared to these other models, as Apple Intelligence is severely lacking and still currently lacks to this day as it's in beta mode, whereas Samsung, you can constantly use it for live translations, be able to use it for AI tasks, for everyday type of usage. You could even ask specific questions, it will answer back to you right away, compared to Siri. When you do ask a task, it likes to take you to Google. Now let's get to the actual software, the OS on both devices. On all 3 of the devices, the 15 Pro Max and the 17 Pro Max have both of the same OS, which is iOS 26, the newest glass looking type of software, which kind of reminds you of Windows Vista in a way. It is a bit slower compared to the other iOSs, I can certainly tell you that. They focus on more quicker transitions than actual smoothness. In a way, it's good and a bit buggy at times in some aspects, especially when you go into the camera, or sometimes when you do try to go and multitask in other areas. Now, iOS is certainly one of the easier OSs to use and great for those who are not really that tech savvy, for those that are also used to this system, as again, iOS has been out for quite some time. Now, when it comes to the Samsung S25 Ultra, it does feature Android 15. With Samsung's S25 Ultra, it's great for those who are more tech savvy. Reason being is because for those who are a bit more tech savvy, you do have a bit more freedom around the software compared to something like iOS 26 where you're a bit more locked up. But the most important thing is when it comes to iOS, it is locked down to its privacy, which is the most important factor to the customers out there. They don't want any of their personal information to be tracked or leaked, which is very transparent. Samsung does use Android 15, does use their One UI 7, which One UI 8 should be coming out soon, which promises even better transition and more smoothness. Better yet, it comes with a much cleaner type of look compared to prior One UI where it was a bit buggy and glitchy, but One UI 7 has certainly been quite the beast and does make iOS 26 a run for its money, especially for anybody that is new from going to iOS over to something like One UI. It was going to be mostly a smooth transition because you just have your straight wallpaper, and when you need to get to your apps, you just simply pull up your app drawer and then you look for the app that you want to look for. What's also is important is the usage when it comes to the ecosystem. Obviously, if you get Apple's system, you're going to have to get Apple everything, from a MacBook to an Apple Watch to Apple AirPods and so on. Apple's products are strictly just for use on Apple and is not as friendly for something like a S25 Ultra. But you do have a bit more of universal usage when it comes to something like the S25 Ultra with hundreds and hundreds of brands. Now, when it comes to ecosystems, some say Apple is the best when it goes to their ecosystems. That is a true argument to make, and it does make you really think if it really truly is the best ecosystem. But really, it's only 5 devices that's on there. They did have their own pod that unfortunately failed big time. You just gotta admit it, Apple. Which has the better ecosystem because Samsung does have SmartThings, and SmartThings has hundreds of items, including dishwashers, washing machines, TVs, and so on. And that is truly connected and intertwined even to your home. Another important feature is the whole feature when it comes to integration when using, say, DeX which is something you just usually plug into your TV or hook up wirelessly, which is almost like using like a laptop on your TV, which is a really nice feature. Almost feels like you're using Linux compared to when you hook up with an iPhone. Instead, you just get a direct image, a direct mirror of your phone, which there's nothing wrong with it. But honestly, the DeX is a really awesome feature. It would be really nice if Apple implemented something similar along those lines. Now, an important feature to also mention is the difference between when it comes to Android Auto and CarPlay. So we're here in the wonderful car. I want to show you how Apple's iPhone 17 Pro Max's Apple CarPlay. You have to usually unlock your phone in order for it to happen. And there we go. We have it all connected, and as soon as you're connected, you can immediately see that the map opens up. Personally, I like to use Waze when it comes to Apple's CarPlay. They changed it on iOS 26. You had a little bit of lag. I feel like iOS 26 is actually a bit more laggy than many of their other iOSs. Very easy app to use. Of course, they added a widgets here onto the side instead, so you can put a clock if you want. As long as if you're parked up, you can look at your widgets. Or you can switch it up to see your schedule for tomorrow. They also have the weather, so obviously right now it's about 28 degrees Celsius. It should be a high of 31. You can see the rain just pouring in front of us. Hopefully it kind of passes us quick. But these are pretty much like all the different features that you can really do with Apple's CarPlay. And now I'm going to show you what the S25 Ultra can feature. My wife currently, she has Pokemon Go up, so don't mind her game here. So I'm just going to plug this in, and you're going to see how Google's Android's Auto is going to work. It's a very awesome tool. So it's going to currently replace the Bluetooth automatically once we go in it. So now we're into Android Auto. It's quite a intuitive UI, I have to say. It's very quick, easy. I do like the navigation because it's a bit more zoomed out instead of being so close. The thing looks a bit more smaller because it seems like it's running at a much higher resolution. Now when we go here into the pane, it looks kind of similar to Apple's CarPlay in a way, but Android Auto has its own method. So it's saying I'm about like 20 minutes away from home. now we're gonna hit up the menu. And now the really cool thing about Android Auto, it still shows the same wallpaper that you also have on your phone. Plus you have the YouTube music, you have Spotify, you do have your weather.
Currently in Fort Lauderdale, it's 84 degrees and cloudy. Today, there will be heavy thunderstorms with a forecasted high of 88 and a low of 79.
Isn't that pretty awesome?
By the way, next time you can also press and hold the mic button on your steering wheel to ask me anything.
Not only does Android Auto have weather that talks to you, but in fact you can talk to it just like an AI assistant, which is something that would be really nice if Apple had added that to Apple's CarPlay. It's something that is certainly missing. Another additional feature that they do have is you can even check out the latest news, and it pulls up. You can actually listen to different podcasts where it's completely free. You don't have to have Apple Music or Spotify in order to listen to the latest news. Those are the two main differences between Apple's CarPlay versus Android Auto. Now, this is all about preference of choice. Both are excellent systems. Now, it's time to get down to the camera side.
We have the iPhone 17 Pro Max, Samsung S25 Ultra, and we also got the iPhone 15 Pro Max in this beautiful area down here in downtown Fort Lauderdale. And what we're going to do is take some photos, take some videos, and see if there really is a difference in the photography aspect. Now, we all know that Samsung currently is the zoom king. Can the iPhone 17 Pro Max actually beat it out this time? Right now I'm trying to take the picture of the squirrel digging, and we're gonna see if which one does the best. We're gonna zoom in a little bit.
The iPhone 15 Pro Max seems a bit more hazy compared to the 17 Pro Max in the shot. Now the S25, the colors do tend to pop out a bit more, but the clarity is obvious in the 17 Pro Max.
So what I'm gonna do is take an ultra wide shot in an area like this. It's very fitting with all the trees and the water. So let's see which one phone really does it the best. So
S25 Ultra obviously beats out the 15 Pro Max in ultra wide, but when you compare it to something like the 17 Pro Max, it's a bit more closer of a range of comparison. Now the shadows are a bit more obvious in the 17 Pro Max, as the S25 does take away shadows and it's much more vibrant.
We're gonna do a selfie, see how these cameras perform here.
Now the selfie isn't too bad on the 15 Pro Max, but when you compare it to the S25 Ultra, it seems that the 17 Pro Max does exceed quite a bit better. Now comparing photos, the S25 Ultra does excellent in catching it in motion, so does the 17 Pro Max. Now the S25 Ultra is a bit more brighter compared to the 15 Pro Max, where the shadows are more proficient.
Biggest differences when it comes to the camera software here is that it's a little bit more flexible when you do have the use of the camera button. The nice thing is you have this to be able to scroll back and forth, and you can actually zoom in, you can go into portrait mode. Now when it comes with the Samsung Galaxy, it's very customizable when it comes to the camera. In fact, they even have a pro mode.
This is an amazing shot by the S25 Ultra compared to the 15 Pro Max, and even when you compare it to the 17 Pro Max, the S25 Ultra seems to have a much better shot with these shadows. Now when you compare the action cam, they're pretty much similar on all the devices, but you can notice the exposure is way out of range on the S25 Ultra compared to the 17 Pro Max and the 15 Pro Max. It's obvious that it seems that action wise it's a bit more stable and has improved on the 17 Pro Max. S25 Ultra is just as well. 15 Pro Max is the worst when it comes to stability, but it does give a nice focus. The colors again are a bit more realistic on the 17 Pro Max than 15 Pro Max compared to this really quite saturated look that the S25 Ultra does give in the action mode.
So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna use the zoom on all the devices here on the iPhone 15 Pro Max, also on the S25 Ultra, and also on the iPhone 17 Pro Max to see how well the zoom does. So we're gonna zoom in up there on the top of the Bank of America building and see how well the clarity is and see which photo ends up being the best.
Now all these shots are excellent. S25 Ultra does excellent clarity, and so does the 17 Pro Max, but the 15 Pro Max is obviously not that great at zoom, especially at night. Now I know the shadows are a bit out of place on the S25 Ultra, but the 17 Pro Max does have some issues when it comes to chromatic aberration, especially if you zoom in onto this
photo. Now you can pause the video and check it out for yourself, but there's going to be blue, red lines kind of that sharpen outside of the Bank of America sign compared to the more clear shot on the S25 Ultra. There's no denying that the night shot is 100% better on the 17 Pro Max. That practically concludes everything we've done in Los Olas. We got to do some camera shooting. We also got to do some video. Now we can really compare the S25 Ultra, the iPhone 15 Pro Max, and also the iPhone 17 Pro Max to see which one is best. We could say goodbye to Los Olas.
When it comes to the iPhone 15 Pro Max, it has these 3 cameras in back, which are about 48 megapixels. 48 megapixels is great when it comes to telephoto and also wide shots. But when it comes to ultra wide, it's a 12 megapixel camera, which does fairly decent. And also still works great when it comes to cinematic video at 4K 30. Now you may have heard that it can do 4K 60, but that is strictly only when it comes to cinematography if you hook up to an external recorder. The S25 Ultra, this has a really unique camera. In fact, it has a 200 megapixel camera. Aperture wise, it has a 1.7 aperture up to 24 millimeters, and it does have a 50 megapixel ultra wide of 1.9 aperture. When it comes to the telephoto side, it has up to 12 megapixels. It can go up to 4 times, and it can even go beyond that, even up to the space zoom of 100 times. When it comes to zoom quality, the S25 Ultra is just marvelous. Now, when it comes to the iPhone 17 Pro Max, this also has a very different camera look on the back. It has a 48 megapixel wide, 48 megapixel ultra wide, and 48 megapixel ultra zoom. It does have a macro camera, and it does do up to an amazing 4K 60 when it comes to ProRes RAW. You could go up to 2 times, 4 times, and 8 times optical like zoom, meaning that it really relies on the sensor for a much clearer shot. The flash, again, is much more wider, so the pictures will certainly look different at night. Spatial photos on both of these devices. Now, what diffusion does, when you take a photo, it will automatically select the best photo. If you're a zoom king, the S25 Ultra is definitely the way to go. If you prefer much more clear night shots, 17 Pro Max is the way to go. If you just want nice and clear day shots, 15 Pro Max can certainly do that for you as well. What is really different between all these devices? And what doesn't the S25 Ultra have? And that's gonna obviously be the dynamic island. The famous little pill that's on the top of the screen. Some love it, some hate it, some feel like it's screen interference. But that's all on preference side. Many third-party app developers have decided to take advantage of the pill-shaped design. Now, when it comes to S25 Ultra, has a nice little camera cutout, so it doesn't even interfere with your screen usage, which is nice. So if you personally prefer more cinematic movies, you want to watch your YouTube videos just like this one, the S25 Ultra may be the one that you're looking for. What doesn't the Apple iPhone have? In fact, this has the pen. I really honestly miss this, and I gotta say, like, when you use the pen, you don't realize how useful it is. You can write quick notes if you want, and then as soon as you're done, you just put it away. Personally, I love to mess around. I like to draw a lot. I like to do a lot of calligraphy. It would be nice to have a stylus to take advantage, but unfortunately, Apple iPhones unfortunately do not have that feature. Let's go into the satellite communication, because the iPhone 15 Pro Max does have satellite communication, just in case if you need help in an emergency. You get into a car accident, you get into a place where you need to dial 911 for help, or you need to contact emergency service, the satellite will certainly be able to help you to do that, even send out messages. 17 Pro Max can also do the same, where it can send out SOS help. But can Samsung's S25 Ultra do that? Currently, they are working with Starlink, with T-Mobile and Verizon, in order for you to reach satellite services and even be able to message or even call through satellite if you do need help. So it's currently with Samsung, it is in beta, but for sure when it comes to the 15 or the 17 Pro Max, you certainly can get help with via satellite. One thing that you gotta love about these devices is the AirDrop. You just simply tap these devices on top of each other, and you can easily switch out contacts. It's a nice feature. You use the near field communication in order to communicate. As we all know, Samsung has already done it. They done it originally when it came to the S-Beam, but anyway, that's not really the point. Samsung does have ultra-wideband, which you can certainly take advantage of, which you can use to find Samsung tags, just in case if you need to locate certain items, which is a breeze to do. What's really nice is when it comes to payments on devices, you do have Face ID, which is definitely one of the most important features when it comes to the 15 and the 17 Pro Max. A great feature to have, especially when you're paying via wallet, Apple Pay. It's very easy to open up and be able to do. But Samsung can go a step further. In fact, you can not only just scan your face to be able to unlock your device when it comes to your wallet, but you can also take advantage with the in-screen biometric display. Unfortunately, Touch ID hasn't returned with the under-display touch. But Samsung can certainly do that. Let's talk about the audio and haptic feedback when it comes to these phones, because you gotta say, these are quite amazing devices and you want to get the best sound and the best feedback when these are in your hands. The iPhone speakers are pretty loud and balanced. Now, I do have to say, when it comes to 15 Pro Max, it can act a little bit finicky. It's not really the best, to be honest. Sometimes it works, sometimes it can all of a sudden act super loud. But when it comes to the S25 Ultra, it's pretty balanced. It doesn't do that. When it comes to the 17 Pro Max, as far from what I've seen, it's also just as balanced. Now, of course, the haptic feedback is legendary when it comes to Apple. We all know it. It works great. But Samsung has certainly done well when it comes to their haptic feedback as well. Theirs was a bit finicky in the beginning, but certainly has improved well over time. You can't really expand the storage on any of these devices. You could use a USB-C device to expand on your storage if you choose to, if you really need to, but most of the time you're probably not. You're probably going to link it to either Google Photos, or you're going to link it to Google Drive, or even Apple's iCloud. Now, when it comes to voice and call quality, they all support 5G, obviously. They support 4G, LTE, whatever type of network that you would like to use it on. In fact, I used the 15 Pro Max when I was in Taiwan without issue when I used Google Fi. Love the network. In fact, I could, with Google Fi, you can travel anywhere and still get signal. If you want to check them out, check down in the description box down below. Highly recommend it, because you don't ever have to go with another carrier. If you're in a different country, you can always have signal wherever you go. If you're on the iPhone 11 and you just really need to upgrade, somebody out there I know watching knows exactly who I'm talking about, has the iPhone 11 and it's barely hanging on for dear life and you need to upgrade, and you're thinking of doing a large upgrade, the 15 Pro Max might be actually it. This is a very decent phone. The only real issues I gotta say when it comes to the iPhone 15 Pro Max is the heat issues. It's just really annoying. It can get really hot in your hands. That's the negatives I have to say about when it comes to the iPhone 15 Pro Max. It still works flawlessly when it comes to gaming, or when it comes to multitasking, or when you are taking photos. It is great when it comes to its iOS features. You don't even have to even reach out to the iPhone 16 Pro Max to really enjoy any of these type of features. So if you're a full Apple type of user, after you see this whole review, you have a decent idea of what the iPhone 15 Pro Max can certainly offer. Now, when it comes to the S25 Ultra, this is an awesome phone. This is great for everybody who is super technical, and for anyone who loves to do programming and loves to do LLMs. This has a high advantage in order to do so, and for those who are in love with AI usage, the Samsung S25 Ultra can certainly do that. It's one of the most underrated and definitely going to be the top usage when it comes to this S25 Ultra, and also magnificent when it comes to zoom photos. It's also great when it comes to its openability. You gotta love the clipboard, the multitasking features, the list can go on. Especially the S Pen, that just gives it the chef's kiss. Now, when it comes to the 17 Pro Max, it's an excellent phone. I gotta say, the negative I have to say about it is I do not like aluminum bodies. There's a reason why they disappeared in the first place. They decided to switch it up to stainless steel and then titanium, now back to aluminum. More than likely, I wouldn't be surprised if they end up switching up the casing. If the Samsung S25 Ultra can certainly do it, why doesn't Apple be able to have a titanium phone with vapor chambers? And that is the positive thing about this phone. If you want a phone that does not overheat as much, definitely get the iPhone 17 Pro Max. That can certainly do it. It takes awesome photos. And also, if you're a big fan of using the dynamic island, the Apple exclusive features such as AirDrop, and so much more, especially if you have a Mac OS or iPad and other Apple devices, and you're pretty much locked into their ecosystem, and you can take full advantage of that. So it's not a large upgrade from, say, the iPhone 15 Pro Max. If you're going from Android and you're thinking of going to something like iPhone, it's really a breeze, really easy to transfer all your data over. If you want to see how I did that, I did it on live. In fact, I'll link the video right here. After 2 years of usage, I would give this phone probably like it's actually honestly a decent phone. I would give this like an 8 out of 10. Now when it comes to the Samsung S25 Ultra, from everything from its capabilities, long battery life, vapor chambers, this is definitely going to be a 8.5 out of 10. And then for the iPhone 17 Pro Max, I would certainly give that one more like a 7.5, a 7 out of 10. I would give it a much higher rating if it wasn't for the cheap aluminum body. Can certainly affect a phone's longevity, which we will certainly see, especially because now we've seen the big change in price when it comes to Apple Care's pricing, when it's now $140 a year compared to paying $140 for two. Immediately you can tell right there they expect this phone to be scratched or damaged or break.